Battle of Bull Run, also known as Manassas, the bloodiest battle in American history before 1862.
1861, the Civil War had just officially commenced through the insurrection of Fort Sumter. The Union, led by Abraham Lincoln, the newly elected president that caused the secession of the southern states. After Lincoln announced the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863, the Union made it their aim to abolish slavery. On the other hand, the Confederacy, led by the newly appointed Jefferson Davis, aim was to succeed from the Union and keep its territory. Both sides are ill prepared for a war, yet they chose to proceed. The Union's main goal throughout the war was to preserve themselves, while Confederates wanted to be free of the Union. However, both of them did share a mutual goal, that the question of if slavery should exist should come to an end.
Both sides are now fully alert for battle. During the summer of 1861, PGT Beauregard positions 20,000 men in the town of Manassas, near the Bull Run River and only 25 miles away from the White House. Lincoln, in attempts to relieve the pressure, sent General Irvin McDowell, 35,000 men strong, to subdue Beauregard from the proximity of Washington. McDowell's plan was to insurrect Centreville and then contrive a strategy to take on Beauregard.
During mid-July 1861, General McDowell pushed west to confront Beauregard's Confederate army. He had forced the Confederates back to the railroad junction at Manassas, now defending the river crossing Bull Run. Now Beauregard had to protect the roads to Richmond and the railroads of Manassas, which was vital to Confederate transportation. McDowell sent General Daniel Tyler with 8,000 men to Blackburn's Ford on a reconnaissance mission, though on July 18th he faced tough resistance that he did not expect and was forced to retreat back to McDowell at Centreville. This showed McDowell that he should cross elsewhere.
Meanwhile, General Joseph Johnston had maneuvered away from Union General Robert Patterson and from their own skirmish in Shenandoah Valley. General Johnston, with his 12,000 men, made his way to the Manassas Gap Railroad, where they boarded to Manassas to reinforce Beauregard. This was the first time Confederate troops were rushed into battle by railroad. This reinforcement made the battle a somewhat equal fight, since both sides now held similar numbers in troops.
On July 21st, McDowell again sent Tyler's division, this time on a left flank on Bull Run. Upon confronting the Southerners, he formed two divisions, one occupying the Southerners on the front, whilst the second, holding 1,300 men, went all the way around and crossed Bull Run and Harpin Run on the rear side of the Confederates. The division emerged at Settling Springs in a poorly managed attempt to ambush the Southerners. As the Union division approached Matthew Hill, the Confederates quickly realized what was going on, and Colonel Shanks Evan and General Bernard B. arrived to hold them off. Though the quickly mustering Union army was able to force the Confederates back to Henry Hill.
Once retreated back to Henry Hill, Confederate Brigade, the Virginians, led by General Thomas Jackson, formed the strength of the Confederates' position. As Union troops attacked to puncture Jackson's wall of troops, they repeatedly failed, thus how Jackson earns his nickname, Stonewall. As the cannons of the Union continued to get captured, and the front line started suffering heavy infantry losses, whose losses were not proportioned by Confederates due to their continuous reinforcements, the Union retreated and the Southerners followed them until they were kicked all the way back into their own northern boundaries, in doing so concluding the first battle of the Civil War, a Confederate victory.
Bull Run served the bloodiest battle in American history up to its point. One of the Union soldiers from a Rhode Island regiment by the name of Samuel J. English cried, "A perfect hailstorm of bullets, round shot, and shell was poured upon us tearing through our ranks and scattering death and confusion everywhere. Yet the Union soldiers laughed at retreat. Most showed dignified determination to fight the battle until every last one of them lay dead on the field. As William Thompson Lusk of the 79th New York Infantry rallied, we cheered and yelled, pressing onwards regardless of shells now and then falling among us, thinking only of a sharp fight and a certain victory. On the Confederate side, were greeted with the almost equally as unyielding phalanx of infantry, most notably under General Stonewall Jackson. Early into the battle, the Confederate line were exterminated quickly with the onslaught brought by the Union troops. In an attempt to rally his men, General Bernard B. pointed to Jackson in the distance, shouting, "There stands Jackson like a stone wall. Rally behind the Virginians."
The First Battle of Bull Run proved significant for the course of the war. Well, the battle gave the South a false boost in confidence. For the North, it showed them that the war would linger for much more longer and prove much more difficult than expected, thus providing them with a cold splash to the face. After the battle, Lincoln was quite infuriated and he replaced General McDowell with General George B. McClellan, who would reveal himself a not so worthy chief general, and later, a nemesis of Lincoln in the election of 1864 as a nominated Democrat. Without the first Bull Run, the war itself would have not been able to pursue how it did. It was quite necessary and somewhat inevitable for the North to face defeat and grow from it.